We'll look at a few ways that you can QA a ShipWeight project. Here we're looking at the ShipWeight project with some weight data in it, but it can be difficult to detect just by glancing on the big numbers here if there are some errors in the project database. So we'll see some ways to help you find any errors. The first one is to check for duplicate items in the database. And we do this by opening up the item dialog and list all items. In the items dialog, on the tools menu, you'll find a submenu that's called find, and in that find menu you will find a menu item that's called identical items. This will bring up a dialog that will help you find duplicate items that's been entered in by mistake. Now the combination of weight group and item number have to be unique in ShipWeight, so you're not allowed to enter in any items with the same combination of weight group and item number. So that is the first way to prevent duplicate items going into the database. But you can have errors that makes duplicate items go into different items number and different weight groups. And you can use this tool to detect those. Now the way to do it is that first you as a user then gives in what you would like to constitute as being a duplicate item. And you do that by checking the boxes next to the compare fields here. So for example, if I want to see if my database have any data that shares the description, weight and center of gravity location, then I check the boxes for these quantities: description, weight, VCG, LCG and TCG. And then when I click the query button here, the dialog is going to search through the database and see if it can find any instances that shares description, weight and VCG, LCG and TCG, because obviously that might be a duplicate items. So it can be items that by mistake does not have have been entered with different weight groups and item numbers. So I'm checking these up here and then click query, and then on the right upper hand here I can see that there's found 2 instances of that shares the same description, weight and VCG and LCG. And if I click on this one, then I will get the details down here. So the detail shows me that in weight group E111 I have 2 items with the same description, hatch on main deck, with the same weight and same center of gravity. So obviously this is a potential error. They are in the same weight group, but they have different item numbers, but that could be a mistake. So now I will have to find out if I need to remove them or if it is correct, if they should be there, both of them. I can anytime change what constitutes a identical item. So let's try again by removing the description and just search for items that share the same weight, VCG, LCG and TCG, and then do a new query. So now it's found 3 instances, each containing 2 items. The first one was the one that we was looking at a minute ago. This one shared both the same description and weight and LCG, TCG and VCG. While if I click on the next one here, I will find another one where these items have the same weight, they have the same center of gravity location, but their description differs. The first one says hatch on C deck, the second one says hatch C deck. So again, this could be a potential duplicate, and I need to decide if I need to correct this or not. And then finally we have something more here, one more instance of a hatch to ROV moon pool, and a hatch hawser, and those two items also share exact same weight and CG. And again, I have to check if those are by mistake duplicate items or not. So I go by then and check other things. For example, just checking items that have different weight but share exact CG location and query, and now I get even more instances of that, and I can go through them and find out if I find some of them to be error. I can also, for example, check on items that share the same description, exact same description, but have different weight and CG location. Again, I click query and it will list all items that share the exact same description. And then I can investigate it. For example, I have 8 instances steel door main deck. They share the same description. Probably if you have 8 steel doors on your main deck, this is correct. So this is one way of going through the database and check for possibly duplicate items that's been allowed into the project database by mistake. Another typical mistake is entering in some wrong CG or weight by, for example, putting in a millimeters instead of meters, or somehow else getting in some extreme values. And the easiest way to check for this is to go into the item dialog, make sure that you are listing all items, and then you can just go to the headers and click on them to sort. So for example, if I go to TCG and click once, it's going to start with the lowest TCG value, minus 11.4, and then with going larger values down here. If I click again, I will get the largest value on top, and here's a typical instance of where someone have been entering in millimeters instead of meters. So it's very easy to get an extreme value on the top line here just by clicking on the header. And now I can just go in and correct this by putting in a decimal where it should be. So this should typically be 11.7. And then you can do the same with the LCG. Click once to get the lowest value, click one again to get the highest value. So this looks okay, and you can do the same with VCG. Click once and then again, and here I find another error. I'm going to leave this error in here because I'm going to show another way that you can find this. And you can also check, of course, the extreme values of your weight and the other factors here. So this is checking for errors on the item level. Now, another way to discover errors is to compare on the weight group level, and there are two main ways of doing that. One way is to go to the view menu and select the compare. We go to view and select the compare menu items, and this brings up the compare dialog, which will show you your project with the weight, VCG and LCG, and now it's sorted by the hierarchy. And then you can add previous revisions or previous project into this dialog and compare values on the weight group level. So I add more projects into here by right-clicking in this list and this white area and select add project, and then I select the project that I want to compare with, for example this one, revision 2, and I can add many projects here, but right now I'm just going to add one, but you can add any number of projects. Then it will show first weight, your current project, and show the value of the weight for the weight groups for your current project, compare it with the weights of the weight group of the selected project in the list here and show you the deviation. And it will do it for the weight, VCG and LCG, and also TCG if you check it here. You can, by default it's sorted by the hierarchy, but you can also sort it by deviation by clicking deviation here, and then it will sort by absolute deviation. And obviously if you list all the hierarchy, then the aggregated weight groups, the top weight groups, will come up on top here. To avoid that, you can go to this radio button list and select lowest, and then it will only pick up the weight groups that have items in it. So it goes down and only checks the lowest level. And here I can see that the biggest deviation here, except for the remainder of the hull, is my towing equipment group. So we can sort on deviation by absolute deviation, or if you want to, you can also sort by relative deviation to show which group have the largest relative deviation compared to your current project. This list can be right-clicked and copied and pasted into Excel for further investigation in Excel, or you can print it and make a report. You can also go to the view and shift the view from this grid view to a tree view. That will show you the weight groups in a hierarchy tree, and you can expand and collapse weight groups here to investigate weight group weight values and VCG and LCG values with your current project and compare it with previous revisions or previous projects. So that's the compare dialog to compare weight groups. Another way to compare weight groups with previous project is to do a sort of a reverse parametric estimation. Now, even if this is a following up a monitoring tracking project and the values are not estimated, we can still use the parametric estimation dialog for sanity checking of the numbers. In example, if I find 859 tons for the weight group equipment to be suspicious, then I can select the group and I can open up the estimation dialog. Now, I'm not going to do a parametric estimation here, but now since I already have a value in this group, the estimation dialog will show me which coefficient corresponds to that value. So this means that if I did a parametric estimation to obtain this value, 859 tons, I would have needed to select a coefficient that was 0.57, also shown by the line down here. However, these are my historical projects, and I see that the natural thing would be that the coefficient should be up here against my historical project. So this shows that there is something suspicious with this value. It seems very low compared to historical relations between length and beam in the method. The value that I've currently tracked gives me a very low coefficient. So this might be a weight group that I should continue to investigate. Now, for further explanation on this estimation dialog, please see our dedicated video tutorial on the parametric estimation. The final way of doing a QA on a total database is to run a weight distribution curve. The weight distribution curve will test your database in two different ways. First, when you start to the project and start to create it, it will show you any errors as far as minimum and maximum values for the extension. And if it finds errors like that, it will throw up error message. For example, here it has discovered that the LCG max 35.8 is defined aft of the LCG value 53.2 for this item. Now I have the option of ignore this error. I can print it, or I can cancel the weight distribution. In this case, I'm just going to ignore all these errors. The weight distribution curve, if the weight check option is checked, then it will plot the center of gravity location of the items that is used to create the weight distribution. And we see here a profile of the vessel, and everything looks to be correct, except that on the top here we have an item that is obviously out of range. If I click it once, it will give me a tooltip that shows weight group, item number, description, weight, LCG, VCG, and min max value, so I can find that item. If I double click on it, it will take me into the item dialog, highlight this item, and I can correct the error. Do it like that, close the item dialog, and update the distribution curve. Another and final way to do some sanity checking is by doing code envelopes. If you have defined a custom code, for example for areas, which I have here, I have one custom code for area, and I have sub areas A1, A2, and A3, and these areas have been given box limits. So A1 has a VCG min of 0, a VCG max of 5, an LCG of 0, and LCG max of 80, and TCG of minus 12 to 12. And then I have another box definition for A2 and A3. If you need more information on how to set up and use the code definition, please see our dedicated code definition video tutorial. So these have been set up like that, and in my items dialog, items have been tagged to various areas, and now I can QA the correctness of these by going to menu view and code envelopes. This brings up a dialog that will show me the custom codes that I have, and I have only one, so that's the only one that shows up here, and it will show the boxes belonging to that. If I select then CO1 here and click show all, it's going to print in the XZ plane and XY plane the boundaries of the boxes, and I can also put on the box labels. And now if I select here, it's going to highlight the various boxes, and if I highlight, for example, box A2 and also then put a check on A2, it's going to print all items in the XZ and XY plane. It's going to display all items that's been tagged to A2, and then I can see if all of them are inside the box, or as in this case we find one item outside the box, and these items are numbered. So this number here is 39, and then I can scroll down the list here and find item number 39, and obviously this is an error. Either item 39 has a wrong CG value, or it has been tagged to the wrong area code. Also here you can print out the report for this if you want. So that concludes the video. So we've shown you some of the ways to QA the database. Obviously, using the item filters and further sorting and digging into the details, you can find your own ways of and running your own reports to find other ways of queuing the project database, but at least this was some tips on how to do it.